Sigmund Freud said, "Yes, America is gigantic, but a gigantic mistake." He said, "America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but, I am afraid, it is not going to be a success." Carl Jung said, "America facing its most tragic moment. America is the most tragic country in the world today. Prudery is always the cover for brutality." H.L. Mencken said, "Nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public." George Carlin said, "Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups." America is a country with an immense inferiority complex, for which it is always desperately trying to compensate. It is excessively prudish thanks to its history of embracing the most puritanical forms of Christianity, those that Europe drove out. It has always dreamt of being led by a dictator, a messiah, who will give it permission to bully the world and claim that Americans are superior to everyone else. Nowhere else in the world will you find politicians saying prayers before they hold meetings, but they do in the USA. What? Was it God who commanded Trumpelthinskin and Sideshow Vance to betray Ukraine and surrender to Russia? Does God love a lonely muskrat? Why does the American God seem to love the super-rich elite? Didn't that Jesus bloke say that rich people couldn't get into heaven? Here are some relevant biblical quotes. "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your fields, and which has been withheld by you, cries out against you. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry." Then said Jesus unto his disciples, "Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God." The young man said to Jesus, "All these things I have kept from my youth. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me." But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. So, here we have it, straight from the horse's mouth, that all rich Americans are damned and are going to hell. As we all know, Jesus Christ was a woke hippie, a socialist, a communist, a Marxist. Americans suffer from extreme cognitive dissonance when they claim to be Christians even though they worship the super-rich and crave to be ruled by the super-rich. Would any American anywhere like to ask Trumpelthinskin and Sideshow Vance and Elonely Muskrat to explain what Jesus Christ meant when he explicitly damned the rich to the inferno? You see, this is the fundamental American problem: absolute hypocrisy. Americans play the game of malignant narcissism. They portray themselves as a godly people, and then they act like devils. They can't help themselves. They are totally dominated by their collective shadow. They cannot face up to their true nature, because it's too painful. Americans love Trumpelthinskin, Sideshow Vance and Elonely Muskrat because these people represent their true soul, that of grandiose narcissism. Pathological narcissism is always compensatory. In terms of individuals, it compensates for physical and mental abuse in childhood, which caused the infant to fail to develop a true self and to turn instead to a delusional false self, always bigging itself up. The USA had traumatic infancy because it was defined by English settlers, one group of which, the iconic Pilgrim Fathers, were fanatical Puritans hated in their own country of England. These people were all narcissists who believed themselves the elect of God. Not a good start for a modern nation. So, America was about immigration, extreme religious beliefs, and we all know what the new Americans did to the Native Americans, and what they did to Africans they abducted from Africa. This is not a psychologically healthy background. Grandiose, pathological narcissism can also be caused situationally, i.e., a situation arises that delivers an immense blow to a nation's psyche and a compensatory response is then required. The malignant narcissist Adolf Hitler came to power for 4 reasons. First, Germany was humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Second, Germany suffered an economic collapse provoked by the Wall Street crash. Third, Germany had endured the woke weirdness of the Weimar Republic. And four, Germany had a long-standing anti-Semitic culture. Hitler ticked every box for addressing decisively these four national issues. Adolf Hitler was, it cannot be stated enough, a democratically elected politician. Winning an election does not mean in any way that you are not a fascist. Now look at the USA. It did not achieve a victory in the Korean War. It was militarily humiliated in Vietnam and lost the war. It performed disastrously in Iraq and Afghanistan. China rose up as a vast military power capable of threatening the USA. These were all immense blows to American prestige. Next, the USA had for decades been plagued by a liberal counterculture that culminated in the weak, pathetic ideology of wokeness, a postmodern joke philosophy that hates truth and strength and celebrates bizarreness, the relative and the subject, a weird freak show. Next, America had long held a notion of itself as a God-chosen nation with a manifest destiny and blessed with exceptionalism. Just as the chosen people hate the Goyim, the Americans imagine themselves intrinsically superior to everyone else. Its politicians, uniquely, invoke God to bless their endeavors. If that is not pure grandiose narcissism, what is? Why should God bless America and not Africa? Next, America's financial domination is at an end. Countless Americans struggle to make ends meet. They survive from paycheck to paycheck. How can that be if they live in the richest country in the world, personally blessed by God as the world's superpower? So, America in the last few years has been desperately searching for a strong man to make it great again, just as Germany in the 1930s sought a strong man to make Germany great again. Germany first, America first, it's all the same. The Nazis said Ein Volk, Ein Reich, Ein Führer, Everif, which is the German equivalent of MAGA. America is absolutely caught up in the Hitler phenomenon and Hitlerian psychology of grandiose malignant narcissism, the need for a strong man, a messiah, to save it, to raise it up again, to make it superior to everyone else. Once this pathology has been unleashed, it can only end in disaster, exactly as it did for Hitler and Nazi Germany. The clock is ticking for America, and the biggest tragedy is that there's no way out. America cannot save itself. It is committed to a ruinous policy, based on a deranged superiority complex compensating for absolute feelings of inferiority. We are not living in a political age where political solutions are possible. We are living in a religious age where religious nutcases invoke good and evil, and everyone has to fight to the end. We are living in a psychiatric age when major figures on the world stage are suffering from disastrous personality disorders and mental pathologies. The real issue facing the USA and everywhere else is how to stop mad people getting to the top. As things stand, the system is all about putting the insane in the top jobs, to satisfy insane, grandiose, narcissistic fantasies. Trumpelthinskin, Sideshow Vance and Elonely Muskrat all hate democracy and believe that nations should be run by strong men. These men love the Russian dictator and war criminal Vladimir Putin because he is exactly like them. They hate President Zelensky because he isn't, and dare to contradict them, just as he heroically fought back against Putin. The world is now facing collapse. Absurd politicians in democracies have to keep trying to play the politics game with the likes of Trumpelthinskin, Sideshow Vance, Elonely Muskrat, and Voldemort Putin, who are not politicians at all but people with dangerous psychiatric disorders, just like Hitler. You cannot use political arguments with people who don't acknowledge political reality because they are engaged instead with fantasy. That's why catastrophic events are guaranteed in the next few years. And no one can do anything about it. You cannot make the insane sane.